Chapter 1. The Haunting of Hollowbrick Mannor. The rain fell relentlessly, a relentless deluge that pounded the earth like 1,000 ghostly whispers. The sky above Hollowbrick Mannor was a blanket of darkness, with the moon and stars hidden beneath the thick shroud of clouds. The old manor stood atop a desolate hill, its once grand facade now marred by years of neglect and decay. It loomed like a sentinel of the past, a testament to the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. Inside the manor, 3 reluctant souls huddled together in the dimly lit foyer, their faces etched with anxiety and fear. Emily, the historian with a penchant for the supernatural, had convinced her friends, David and Sarah, to join her on what she promised would be the adventure of a lifetime. "We shouldn't have come here," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling like the leaves outside the window. David, the skeptic, scoffed. "Oh, come on, Sarah. It's just an old house with a spooky reputation. Nothing to be afraid of." But Emily knew better. She had spent years researching the legend of Hollowbrick Mannor, where it was said that the tormented souls of its former inhabitants still roamed the halls. Emily's obsession had led her here, to this eerie place, and now there was no turning back. As the trio ventured deeper into the manor, the air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to come alive, dancing in macabre patterns on the decaying wallpaper. Emily's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that seemed to reach out and touch them. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house, and they froze in terror. It wasn't a scream from the past, it was a scream from one of their own. "David!" Emily cried, her heart pounding in her chest. They rushed to the source of the scream, finding David sprawled on the floor, his face drained of color, staring at something they couldn't see. A sinister presence enveloped them, and the walls seemed to close in, as if the very house itself was alive and malevolent. Emily's research had led her to a chilling conclusion. The legends were true, and the spirits of Hollowbrick Mannor were very real. As they struggled to escape the manor's clutches, a whispered voice filled their ears, chilling them to the bone. "You should never have come here," it hissed, and a malevolent force surged around them. With a desperate cry, Emily, David, and Sarah made a run for the exit, but the door slammed shut before their eyes. Trapped inside, they realized they were not alone. The spirits of Hollowbrick Mannor had awakened, and their nightmare had only just begun. To be continued. Chapter 2. The Divided. The oppressive darkness swallowed Emily and Sarah as they stumbled through the narrow, winding corridors of Hollowbrick Mannor. Panic gnawed at their hearts, and their breaths came in ragged gasps. They had become separated from David in the chaos that had erupted in the foyer. "Emily, we have to find David," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. She clutched Emily's arm tightly, her nails digging into her flesh. Emily nodded, her flashlight trembling in her hand. "I know, Sarah, but we can't just wander blindly. We need a plan." As if in response, a soft, mournful wail echoed through the halls, causing both women to freeze. The sound seemed to come from all directions, disorienting them. "We should stick together," Sarah suggested, her eyes darting around nervously. Emily hesitated but ultimately agreed. They began to retrace their steps, calling out David's name in hushed voices. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to press down on them, making each step heavier than the last. Suddenly, a door creaked open, and a shaft of pale moonlight pierced the darkness. Emily and Sarah exchanged glances before cautiously approaching the doorway. It led to a small study, its walls lined with dusty, ancient books. They entered, and Emily's flashlight illuminated a large, ornate mirror on the far wall. As they drew closer, their breath caught in their throats. David's face appeared in the mirror, distorted by terror and despair. He was on the other side, separated by some unfathomable force. "David!" Sarah cried, her voice echoing through the room. She reached out, pressing her hand against the glass, but it was like trying to touch a dream. David's voice came out in strained gasps. "Emily, Sarah, don't come any closer. There's something here, something malevolent." Before they could respond, a sinister laughter filled the room, and David's reflection in the mirror contorted into a grotesque, nightmarish visage. The mirror seemed to ripple like water, and David was pulled into its depths, disappearing before their eyes. "No!" Emily screamed, pounding her fists against the mirror in desperation, but it remained unyielding. Sarah and Emily were left in the eerie silence of the study, their hearts heavy with dread. David was gone, trapped in some otherworldly realm within the mirror. They had to find a way to save him and escape Hollowbrick Mannor, but the malevolent spirits that dwelled within its walls had other plans. Chapter 3: The Spirit's Grasp. Sarah and Emily continued their frantic search for David, their hearts heavy with dread after witnessing him being pulled into the sinister mirror. The oppressive atmosphere of Hollowbrick Mannor seemed to grow more malevolent with each passing moment. As they rounded a corner, a chilling presence descended upon them. The air grew colder, and a heavy silence filled the corridor. At the end of the hallway, a spectral figure materialized, its form wavering like a mirage. It was a ghastly apparition, a woman in a tattered, blood-soaked wedding gown. The spirit's hollow eyes were sunken and black, her skeletal fingers reaching out toward them. Her skin was mottled and rotting, with long, matted strands of hair hanging limply around her face. She emitted a low, mournful moan that sent shivers down their spines. Emily's flashlight quivered in her trembling hand as she and Sarah backed away slowly. The ghostly bride advanced, her movements slow and deliberate, as if she was savoring their fear. "Stay back!" Sarah cried, her voice filled with desperation. But the spirit was relentless. She closed the distance between them, her bony fingers brushing against Emily's arm. A searing coldness spread through Emily's body, paralyzing her with fear. She could feel the specter's presence invading her mind, probing her deepest fears and nightmares. With a sudden burst of strength, Sarah swung her flashlight like a weapon, striking the apparition. The ghost let out a piercing scream, her form dissipating into a cloud of mist that swirled and vanished. Gasping for breath, Emily and Sarah knew they had to escape Hollowbrick Mannor. They retraced their steps, retracing their path through the winding corridors, desperate to find a way out. Finally, they burst through the manor's front doors, gasping for fresh air. Rain still fell from the heavens, washing away the terror that had clung to them. Without looking back, they sprinted into the dark forest that surrounded the manor. Hours passed as they ran deeper into the woods, not daring to stop until exhaustion overcame them. Finally, they stumbled upon a small clearing with a moonlit pond. The tranquility of the water offered a brief respite from the horrors they had endured. As they sat by the pond, their breaths heavy and laboured, Emily dipped her fingers into the water, sending ripples across its surface. The moonlight danced on the pond's placid surface, casting an ethereal glow. Just as they began to relax, the water before them erupted in a violent splash, and a figure emerged. It was David, drenched and gasping for air, his eyes wild with terror. Emily and Sarah let out a collective scream, scrambling away from the pond's edge. David clawed his way onto the bank, coughing and sputtering. "David! You're alive!" Emily exclaimed, tears of relief streaming down her face. But as they helped him to his feet, his gaze remained fixed on the pond. He whispered, "It followed me. It's still here." And just beneath the moonlit surface, something stirred, a sinister presence lurking in the water, waiting to strike. The horrors of Hollowbrick Mannor were far from over, and their nightmare had only just begun. To be continued.